Good afternoon, everybody. A lot going on today at City Hall, and now we have some other important pieces of legislation we'll be talking about today here at this hearing. And it's a historic day because it's another step in terms of closing Rikers Island once and for all, leaving that history behind and working towards a new reality on Rikers Island. This is really an important historic moment. And this will immediately start the process of transferring parts of Rikers Island to the Citywide Administrative Services Department. More will come over the years ahead on the way to fully leaving Rikers Island as a place for incarceration and creating it as a place that will play an important role in a positive future for this city. So we're going to right the wrongs of the past as we leave Rikers Island behind. And the legislation today is going to help us do it. It's going to help us reimagine the spaces on Rikers Island and how they'll contribute to the future of this city. And we'll do so because of this legislation in a way that focuses on environmental justice, that focuses on social justice, that focuses on sustainability. This is why this is so important today. It's not just about leaving Rikers, it's about replacing it with something better for our future. That's what two of the bills are about today. We also have a third bill on a very different topic, but a very important topic, which is about public integrity and protecting the integrity of our election system and of public service in general. And this bill will ensure that corrupt individuals are not able to hold public office again in the future. So let me go over the legislation. Intro 1592A. And this bill will transfer portions of Rikers Island now to Department of Citywide Administrative Services beginning in July. And then all of Rikers Island would be transferred by 2027 as we're ready to close down all the correction activity there. Establishes a Rikers Island Advisory Committee, which includes members in the committee who were at some point in custody on Rikers Island. Members of the committee will also be immediate family of those who were incarcerated. On top of that, environmental justice advocates, sustainability experts. This committee is going to do a lot to determine resilient, sustainable use for Rikers Island going forward. And then Intro 1593A would require the Mayor's Office of Sustainability to study the feasibility of constructing renewable energy sources on Rikers Island. This is really exciting because our biggest challenge going forward is going to be fighting climate change, protecting this city, protecting our people, protecting the earth. Rikers Island could be an important part of that as a place we could potentially create a lot of renewable energy for this city. So this is a very important bill. And then, as I mentioned, in the effort to protect public integrity, Intro 374A disqualifies, this bill would disqualify people from holding city elected office if they have been convicted of felonies or convicted of an attempt or conspiracy to commit a felony related to public corruption. I want to thank everyone who's been a part of the process of preparing this legislation, bringing it forward. Our Correction Commissioner, Cynthia Brand, DCAS Commissioner, Lizette Camillo, Chief Climate Policy Advisor, Dan Zarilli, and of course from the City Council, Speaker Corey Johnson. And now I want to let the sponsors speak for themselves. First, my pleasure to introduce someone who's done so much to fight global warming here in this city. It's a passion for him. He is chair of the Environmental Protection Committee and sponsor of Intros 1592A and 1593A, Councilmember Costa Constantinidis. Councilmember, can you hear us? He may be on mute. He's on mute. Let's try again. Councilmember.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, how are you?
I'm doing well, my friend. How are you?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm doing well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your great leadership on all issues in New York City, but most certainly our environmental issues and making New York City a greener and more sustainable. I'm glad to be here today to talk about Intros 1592 and 1593A that are part of the renewable Rikers Act. The 413 acres of Rikers Island for far too long has been embodied in unjust and racist criminal justice system. Generations of New Yorkers found themselves cycle of over-policing and over-incarceration.
Should we stop for a moment?
Symbolize
Councilmember, hold up 1 second. I'm sorry.
Yep.
We're having trouble getting your feed here.
Okay.
What's that?
Connection issues on his end.
We're having connection issues on your end. Why don't we pause for a moment? Do you have the ability to call in from a separate line or just do verbal? Because we want to make sure we can hear you. We can't hear you consistently.
Do you hear me better now, Mr. Mayor?
Try a few sentences.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is Costa Constantidis. Do you hear me?
Yes, there we go. Keep going. You're good.
All right, great. So as I was saying, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for all of your great work environmentally and making New York City more green and more sustainable. The 413 acres of Rikers Island have far too long embodied an unjust and racist criminal justice system. Generations of New Yorkers have found themselves caught in a cycle of over-policing and over-incarceration, symbolized by an island named for a family of a slave catcher. However, we have a golden opportunity today to potentially see Rikers Island become a green hub, a renewable Rikers Island, and put the Green New Deal into practice. These bills offer a pathway to building a sustainability and resiliency model for cities around the world. Intro 1592 would, as you said, establish the process for transferring the land, buildings, and facilities of Rikers Island to the Department of Corrections to the Department of Citywide Administrative Services. And we created and established a Rikers Island Advisory Committee, consisting of relevant commissioners, people impacted by Rikers Island, and experts in environmental justice and sustainability, to provide recommendations on potential uses for the island for sustainability and resiliency purposes. And 1593 would require a feasibility study be conducted as an appendix to the long-term energy plan to ascertain whether different types of renewable energy sources combined with battery storage are feasible on Rikers Island. A preliminary analysis that my office did with Sustainable CUNY had just 35 acres of solar panels on Rikers Island create 14.6 megawatts or 17.2 gigawatt hours annually. A mere 12 acres or 4% of the island's total for battery storage, could potentially hold 1,520 megawatts worth of storage, or about half the goals in the entire state we see LCA. It's centrally located and thus ideally situated to host infrastructure such as power or waste plants that should not be located elsewhere. We have an opportunity today to do more for our communities that have been impacted by Rikers Island. And I want to thank all of the advocates, Speaker Corey Johnson, Vidal Guzman, Condra Clark, Marcos Barrios, Rebecca Bratspeed, the Freedom Agenda, and NEJA, NILP, the Littman Commission, the Point CDC. We Act for Environmental Justice, and I of course want to mention my good friend Cecil Colbert-Mark, who was advocating so deeply for this. We miss him very much. NRDC, all of the council staff, and today, Mr. Mayor, as you said, we have an opportunity to look to the 21st century as Rikers Island as a green, sustainable development that will benefit all New Yorkers, particularly those who have been choking on polluted air for way too long. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. Thank you for your good work on this issue. And now, again, turning to a very different issue, but also crucial for our city, fighting against corruption and ensuring integrity in public life, someone who epitomizes real public service and stays connected to the people of his district. And I've always admired his real sense of the grassroots. And I'll tell you, folks at the grassroots really don't want to see the wrong folks in public service. So I appreciate Councilmember Justin Brannan that you've brought forward this legislation. We want to hear from you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate you signing this bill today. Trust and faith in government is at an all-time low, and it's at the absolute worst time. Because of the COVID pandemic, so many of our constituents depend on the government in ways they never have before, and they are rightfully demanding the most of their elected officials. But instead, all too often, they discover misinformation, incompetence, and corruption among the people who represent them. Unfortunately, this declining public trust is coming at a time when we desperately need our government to show unwavering leadership. With our budgets decimated, we have to find ways to not only dig ourselves out of multiple crises, but to envision and plan for a better future moving forward. When at such crucial moment in history, we no longer have the time for elected officials who use a position of power to bankroll themselves, to enrich their friends, or to engage in wrongful dealings on the taxpayer dime, get caught, and then come back looking for more. This legislation would disqualify those who abuse the public trust or misappropriated taxpayer funds from running for city public office again. This legislation recognizes that serving the public in elected office is a privilege, not a right, and it needs to be treated like one. To be clear, this is not about disqualifying those who have committed just any crime. Those who have committed crimes in their personal past and have paid their debt back to society in whatever form should have the opportunity to serve our city, no question. But to bar eligibility for anyone convicted of any crime would be to elect legislative bodies who do not represent the lives of many New Yorkers. And to allow those only with spotless records to run for office would basically be to disqualify virtually everyone who may be eligible. We're not trying to broadly deny anyone a second chance. Of course, I believe in redemption and second chances, but no one should be given a second chance at betraying the public trust as an elected official. With this legislation, we recognize that abuse of public office is a unique and distinct crime. To have squandered taxpayer dollars, to have abused the power given to you by the public, is to devalue the position of an elected official, to devalue the public you serve, and to acutely endanger the public, and it reflects poorly on the office in question of the city overall. It's 2021. There are so many talented and committed people who are qualified to run for office and who would take their oath of office incredibly seriously, but who choose not to because they are disillusioned by the political system or disenfranchised by it altogether. When we allow someone who abused the public trust to serve again, we do not send the message that we want qualified, committed candidates. We effectively recruit those who seek public office only for their own enrichment, and we tell them that this is a place that welcomes them back. This is contrary to the spirit of public service and is the opposite of the message we need to be sending right now in our great city. I want to thank my colleagues in the City Council, led by Speaker Corey Johnson, for supporting this important piece of legislation. I want to thank my colleague, former Councilman and now Congressman Richie Torres, for originally carrying this bill, and of course to you, Mr. Mayor, for signing this important piece of legislation into law today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. Really appreciate the heart you're bringing to this, and I can tell this is something that really strikes you as someone who knows we have to do this work the right way, and especially, you're right, at a moment where there's a lot of distrust, this is one of the things we do to restore trust. So thank you for your leadership. Now we've got—
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We've got folks who have signed up for public testimony. I'll just call out each one in turn. First, we have Darren Mack from the Freedom Agenda.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of our community who survived the last penal colony in the United States, commonly known as Rikers Island, Freedom Agenda would like to thank the mayor for signing the Renewable Rikers Act, the City Council for passage of the Renewable Rikers Act, and all of the organizational partners and allies for supporting and advocating for the Renewable Rikers Act. We know the violence, abuse, and toxicity of Rikers. We also know the environmental hazards in our communities. Today is a historic step in the right direction towards environmental justice and towards social justice. It took courage, commitment, and work to get us to this point. And it is going to take a renewal of courage, commitment, and work moving forward towards our goals. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very much appreciated. Now, Tyler Nims from More Just NYC.
I'm honored to be here today. I'm thankful to Mayor de Blasio and the administration, to Councilmember Constantinides and the City Council, and all of the activists, the advocates, the experts who put so much into this work. We're marching down a long road, a hard road towards closing Rikers, to addressing the injustices that it represents. And we're a long way from the end of that road. But the progress that we've seen, the progress we've made over the past 4 years, is testament to the power of the vision. And these bills, the Renewable Rikers bills, they're the latest example. They point the way to a better future. We have concluded our commission. The environmental potential for Rikers is enormous. So is the potential for reparative justice. These are an important step forward towards a more just New York City. And I thank everyone here and everyone who's been part of this effort for getting us to this point.
Thank you very, very much. And next, an old friend who has testified on many good bills, Eric Goldstein of the Natural Resources Defense Council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to our Renewable Rikers champion, Costa Constantinides, and his deputy, Nick Widzowski, and of course to Speaker Corey Johnson and his great staff, Laura, Nicole, and Brad, and to all of the council members who were sponsors of these bills. NRDC strongly supports the Renewable Rikers bills before you today, and we're delighted that you've indicated you're planning to sign them. As you know, Mr. Mayor, environmental protection and social justice must go hand in hand, and these bills are a beautiful example of that pairing. From a social justice perspective, the Littman Commission said it all when it concluded that closing the notorious Rikers jails is a moral imperative. Turning to the environmental benefits, studies call for in Intros 1593 and Intro 1591B, which we expect the council will pass today and hope you'll sign as well, point the city in exactly the right direction to turn an island of shame into a showplace of responsibilities. These studies set the stage for great things. The region's largest array of solar panels, energy storage that will allow the city to shut down high polluting peak demand power plants, a modern wastewater treatment plant that could allow for closure of older facilities and return the lands that those plants are on to the community, and a major new composting facility to handle much of the city's food waste and keep it out of landfills and the climate generating gases and end the climate generating gases that those facilities generate. All of this we expect will lead to new green jobs and training programs that benefit former detainees. That's restorative justice. Of course, this is just the beginning, and we hope, for example, you'll consider setting up a pilot solar project on Rikers, putting a solar canopy over the existing parking lot as the very first step in demonstrating the changes on the way. But for today, we congratulate you and thank you. Congratulate the City Council. We urge you to sign these bills, and we're pleased to be part of the celebration.
Eric, thank you. I always knew you'd have a next suggestion. That is typical in a good way, so thank you for that. Next, we have Condra Clark of Exodus Transitional Community.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Today is a monumental day, particularly for agencies such as Exodus Transitional Community and so many others who are members of the Renewable Rikers Coalition. As human beings who experienced harm and trauma on Rikers Island firsthand, the Renewable Rikers Act is an opportunity for our voices to be heard, that we, the people most harmed by the island, will be remembered for giving back and healing communities. Not only healing the communities most harmed by mass incarceration, but an entire city that is impacted by negative environmental factors. Through the creation of a renewable energy hub, all New Yorkers will breathe cleaner air and live healthier in general. In addition, we can create green jobs for families and communities most harmed by Rikers Island. There must be investments made in training opportunities in the green job industry, not only for people who have personally experienced Rikers, but for their families, their children, and their neighbors. We can revitalize communities that have been under-resourced for decades through the creation of green jobs on the land that Rikers Island currently sits on. As an organization staffed by and who serves people directly impacted by incarceration, we know how important these jobs truly are. They are a means to ending intergenerational poverty and trauma. People could live and not simply survive. Our children's and family currently suffer, creating intergenerational collateral consequences that are unfair and inhumane. While the Renewable Rikers bill is being signed today, our work as a coalition has only just begun. We must continue to hold the city accountable and make sure that all we have fought for with respect to Renewable Rikers is realized. And that includes green job training and employment positions for people and families most impacted by Torture Island. Exodus looks forward to standing strong with the coalition to bring all of the goals of renewable Rikers to fruition. And again, we thank the city for taking the first step today and signing this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And one more person to testify, Melissa Yaschan of New York Lawyers for the Public Interest.
Thank you so much, Mayor de Blasio, and my comments will echo those of my esteemed partners in the Renewable Rikers Coalition. Today is truly historic and a cause for celebration. We would not be here embarking on making the Renewable Rikers vision a reality without the leadership and courage of the survivors of Rikers and their communities, as well as their neighbors and communities who, in addition to being subjected to higher rates of incarceration, are the same areas who are disproportionately affected by polluting infrastructure. I would also like to thank Council Member Constantinides, who listened to the voices of the survivors of Rikers and EJ advocates and lifted them up. This leadership from directly impacted communities is what brought us here today, at the precipice of New York City, taking its most significant step yet towards meaningful restorative and reparative justice policy. And we must not forget that it is these communities who must remain at the center of the process as we move forward. The Renewable Rikers vision is intended to benefit those most harmed by the trauma of Rikers and mass incarceration, and begin to heal the harms to those who have been subjected to disproportionate pollution in our city as well. We intend to continue our work to ensure that even as the city commits to this vision, that the concrete benefits of cleaner air, cleaner water, good green jobs, and open space where polluting infrastructure once stood truly accrues to those who need it and deserve it. Congratulations to everyone today, and thank you, Mayor de Blasio, for listening to the voices that matter most.
Thank you. That's very nice of you. I appreciate it. And yes, today we're going to do something wonderful. Let me just summarize quickly a few sentences in Spanish, just summarizing everything we're doing here today. Hoy comenzamos el proceso de transferir la isla de Rikers a un futuro más verde. También hoy firmamos una ley que prohíbe a personas corruptas tener puestos electos. Seguimos con nuestro compromiso de crear una ciudad más justa y segura para todos. And with that, we will sign the bills.
10 pence, sir.
10 pens. Okay. Here we go. What is today? 25th. Okay. There's one. These bills are now all law. I congratulate everyone who worked so hard to get us to this day. Thank you for your great efforts. And with that, this hearing is adjourned.